Alright, so in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to create a very basic graphics template, which you'll probably use and extend and customize for future graphics project. But the primary aim of this video is to ensure that our libraries work and we can at least create a window and draw nothing onto it, just get a window up running. In another video, we'll actually do some drawing onto that window. So open Netbeans and you want to create a new project, and this is a regular Java project, so my stuff is selected by default, so Java application. Go to next and we will call this graphics basic, and don't create this main class. We'll be creating our own packages and whatnot, so ensure you uncheck that if it's checked, and then hit finish. Right. So in our source packages, for now, we're going to create a new Java package, and we'll call this package main, and hit finish on that. Within that package, we're going to create a new Java class, which we will also call main, but it's made with a capital M this time because it's a Java class. Okay. So within this class is where we're going to have our main method. Okay. So Opengl itself does not have any windowing capabilities, so the language that you use needs to be able to at least create a window and then let Opengl render graphics in that window. Java has the swing library, so that is what we'll be using to create a basic window, which we will then have Opengl render into it. So within main, create a new Java class, and we'll call this class window. So in our window class, the first thing we're going to do with this class is we're going to extend JFrame. Oh, typo. Yeah, extend JFrame, and then go ahead and import that package. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our constructor. And this constructor now is going to take a few things, but we'll come back later and modify it. It's going to take a title and a width and a height. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to call the super method. And we're going to pass the title of our window to the super method, which has a constructor that takes the title, so we'll set that up. And for now, this is all we're going to do in our constructor. We're going to write a private method, which will handle the window setup. And it's going to take width and height. So essentially what we're going to do in this method is we're going to set up our window, and we're going to set it up in such a way that it allows for future extension, and in the event that you need to place additional components around the window. You could have simply created a regular JFrame and let the Opengl rendering area consume that entire JFrame, but in the event that you need to add some buttons or some other controls, because you didn't use a layout manager and whatnot, it might be a bit tedious to come back and modify this code. So we're going to use the border layout to add that import. Then we're going to set the size of the window. And this is going to take a new dimension object with a width and a height. And then we're going to import up. And then we're going to set the location, which is going to center the window, but there's a more elaborate way of centering the window, but we won't do that here. Now for the window closing event, normally you set it to listen to JFrame exit on close. What we're going to actually do is we're going to add a window listener and override the window closing event within a window adapter, and we'll come back to why we need to do this a bit later, why it's handy to do things this way. So keep importing the classes as necessary. So import the window adapter. And we say we're going to override the window closing event. And go ahead and import that as well. Right, and for now, we're just going to say to verify that it's being called. Closing window and system.exit 0. So that is going to close the window for us. And finally, what we're going to do is, we didn't do it here, we didn't set the window visible, so it's not going to show up, but we're going to do this in a public method because there are going to be some preamble things we need to do before we make this window visible, as you'll see in a bit. And so we'll need to have some manual control over when this window is visible and not make it visible as soon as it's instantiated. So Right, so now what we're going to do is create a main panel. Right, then import the JPanel for this. So as I said, we're making things really flexible. We're having a JFrame with a border layout, and we're going to add a main panel to that also has a border layout. So you have a lot of flexibility with respect to what you're going to do. So we'll create that frame in a bit. For now, we're just going to call the setup window method with the width and the height that is passed to the constructor. And now we're going to set up the main panel. Give you a border layout. And finally, we're going to say add the main panel to border layout dot center. So we create a main panel and we add it to the center of the JFrame. Right, so this looks pretty okay, and this is our basic window that we're going to use to render it to render that OpenGL render graphics to. So we use the swing library to set this up. So just as a quick test, let's see how this works inside of our main method. So we'll say window w is equal to new window, and we need to pass height and width 640, 480. We also need the title, call that test, and then finally we need to make it visible. So we call our set visibility method and pass in a true value. Alright, so there was a slight error in the code. Instead of this being set visibility, which is the same name of the method that it's in, which is going to be an infinite recursive call, it's supposed to be set visible, not set visibility. So after you've made that change, go ahead and try to run the project, and it should come up with the test as the title, center of the screen, with a 640 by 480 resolution. So we're temporarily finished with this class. We're going to need make a few more modifications after we do the OpenGL stuff. Now, to actually create the OpenGL canvas, which will do the rendering, we need to first create a render method, which OpenGL is going to use to do stuff like initializing the canvas, what happens when the canvas is reshaped, what happens when the canvas is closing, and what should happen for each frame of the graphics. Right? When I say frame, I mean what's going to happen for the display method. So you're going to see that. So the first thing we need to do is right click on the project and go down to properties, and then select libraries, and then say add library. And what we're going to look for is our JOGL library, which is what we created. So you select that once and then say add library, then click OK. And if you expand the libraries directory for your project, you should see all the jar files that we had added earlier be a part of your library. So this is the way you're going to add libraries for each graphics project. So it's a bit easier this way as opposed to copying the jar files every time. Right, so with this in place, we'll create a new Java class, which we will call renderer. And this Java class is going to implement the GL event listener interface. So when you implement an interface, there are going to be methods that you need to override. So we're going to add the import for Java GL event listener, and then we're going to go ahead and implement all the abstract methods. So for now, we're going to get rid of the exception drawing. And we're going to place all of this with one line, but before that, we're going to do our constructor. This is going to be an empty constructor for now, but we might come back later and put some stuff in it. So for each method, you're going to have this code. And we're going to obviously import GL4. Copy the same line to each function. Let me go ahead and save that. So we're almost finished for now. So we have our renderer set up, and our renderer is going to have some initialization. This is going to take care of vector and color data and so forth. It has a display function which is going to be called numerous times to keep returning to the screen. It has a reshape function which takes care of what happens whenever the window is reshaped, and the dispose function which allows you to do stuff upon the window closing if necessary. So now we have our render class, which is what OpenGL is going to be used to drawing, and we have our window, which is what we want OpenGL to draw to. We need to link these two classes together inside of main. So we're going to get rid of this test code for now, and we're going to link those windows together. So there are a few things here that you might not fully comprehend initially. That's fine. We will go into them in detail as we go along. Right. So we're first going to create a GL profile. Okay, so the first thing we need to do in this line is to specify the GL profile, which is going to tell you what profile our current application should support. And this profile is going to be passed to a GL capabilities object, which is what we'll create next. And this capabilities object takes a parameter as in its constructor, the same profile parameter, so that the current rendering context knows what capabilities it should support. And in this case, the profile we're using is GL4, which is really important. This means GL version 4.x, where x is greater than or equal to 1. So it's anything OpenGL 4 and upwards that this profile should support. So we're going to set some stuff in the capabilities, such as set double buffered to true. We'll explain what that is later on, and we're going to set hardware acceleration. Set that to true. Now that that is finished, we're now going to create the GL Canvas, which is going to do a lot of the rendering. And this is going to specify what capabilities we're using on this canvas. Of course, do necessary imports. I think that was the wrong canvas. Yes, I'm sure you get the Java X Media OpenGL.awt GL Canvas. Yeah, that is the correct canvas to use. And then finally we're going to create an FPS animator. And we're going to pass the canvas to it. And we're going to say 60. So the FPS animator really takes care of the drawing, calling the OpenGL's draw method repeatedly. So we're saying on this canvas, which is what we're going to use to draw to, draw the image or whatever we have displayed 60 times per second. This wouldn't be exactly 60, but it will be approximately 60 times per second. And this is a bit of an optimization, otherwise OpenGL will attempt to draw as fast as the processor can support, which can consume a little bit of processor resources. After that is finished, we now create our renderer object. and after which we will create our window. And we pass the width and the height, which is going at 640 by 480. And then finally we'll say canvas add GL event listener, and we add the renderer to that, which implements GL event listener interface. Now, we're not entirely finished here. There are just about 2 or 3 more things we need to do before we can get the window up. The first thing is we need to modify our window constructor a little bit. What we'll need to do is we'll need to pass in this animator that we will have created. The reason for this is so that when the window is closing, we can terminate this animator object properly, end its thread. So what we'll do is we'll pass the animator object to the constructor of the window. So this will complain temporarily, but we'll go ahead and adjust this in the window class. So after the title, we'll accept that. We'll go ahead and do the import for this file as well. So in our setup window, we are actually going to take in the animator object. Right. So here, where we have closing window, we're gonna temporarily delete this output that we have, and we'll say one last thing. Since we're overriding a method within a class, this needs to be final. So we'll say if animator, if it's started, say starting FPS animator, animator.stop, animator.stop. Great. So that was it. So all your lines should disappear. Now the last thing we need to do to really link the window with the canvas is we need to add another method to the window class, which is going to accept the GL canvas and add it to the main panel. So now we'll say main panel, do the necessary imports, and we'll say main panel add canvas. Okay. One thing, please make this private. Great. So we're adding the GL canvas to the main panel. So back to our main is where we can go ahead and actually set the GL canvas that we created. One thing we forgot to do, is we forgot to say where we're gonna add this to the main panel, since the main panel supports the border layout. So this takes a position, and you take the position here. Because when you add, you can specify where you want it added to, and you'll see how that works shortly. So what we do now is say window that we just created, that set GL Canvas. When we pass that canvas, and here we'll say dot center. So we add it to the center. And then finally, we need to just start our animator and set the window as visible. Sorry. Animator.start and window at set visibility true. Right? So now, if you've done everything up to this point, you should see just a black window, or you might see some other stuff because we haven't done any Opengl initialization, but generally it's black come up. Right, so this is what we get. So mine is black and so forth. If you haven't seen any output here, this was just a debug statement left in one of the JOGL jar files, so you can ignore this. So yeah, this is what you will see. Now just a few things we need to do before we wrap up. Generally these constants, it's not good programming practice to leave them as is, so we'll create some variables to hold them. So the window height is 640, so you can easily adjust later on. Uh, 480, and the FPS is 60. So we'll replace this with window height, replace this window width, and oh, here it is, replace 60 with FPS. So whenever you need to modify the frames per second, the window height or the window width, you can just use these variables and not have to touch your code. The last thing I need to show you guys is that in the render method, the display method is actually called a whole lot. So what we will do is we'll just do a simple printout in here. That's being called. And what you'll see when you run this is this will be printed out a whole lot of times. So you can see it being printed constantly. So the reason for that is, and when we close you see it stopping, the reason for that is that whenever you draw graphics onto the screen, the display needs to be constantly refreshed to reflect updates, any animations you might make, and so forth. So this display method is where you do all your drawings to render stuff onto the screen. So this is it for your very basic graphics setup. What we'll do is we'll extend on this a little bit more in another video to really get you drawing stuff onto the screen, because as is, we still need to load shaders and so forth, but we'll look at that in the next video.